Hi. First of all, I do know the video is off center. I do apologize for that. Um, I actually have it hooked to a chair right now to get this for you, but I need to talk about something. I need to talk about water and hydropower and DIY things. Now, I've seen a lot of stuff on YouTube that just don't make sense whatsoever, or you know it's not going to work. I have seen a lot of stuff that cost um, anything from $500 up. Well, if you want to get hydro or use water for electricity, or let's say you want to get water out of a river. I was watching a video not that long ago where the guy actually made a pipe with some fans on the front, fan blades. Made sense, but he had the front capped off where water couldn't get in. He bought some kind of special fitting that will spin on both sides. Basically, it's a free spinning thing. So when his fan blades are spinning, there's nothing on the inside spinning. So that made no sense. And he wondered why it didn't work. Well, I've designed a couple things, and I don't have the money to build these now because, money's tight right now. But I was thinking about something about using water for electricity, using water, how do you get water out of a river? If you need to pump it through like a hose or something like that. Unfortunately, all I have to work with is Windows Paint. So I did the best I could. I apologize, but I will go step by step on some of the things I'm talking about here. And I'm even going to tell you how you can make a cheap, do-it-yourself water wheel. And I'm not talking about one that's 6, 7, 8 feet tall. Yes, those do work generally pretty well, even in slow currents. But you're looking at thousands of dollars. And that's generally not a do-it-yourself project. So, what you're looking at here is a submersible water generator. Okay? And what I did was I used basically the generator I have on my bike, or my girlfriend's bike actually, that type of motor, and I'll walk you through it here. You have to excuse me, I took a shower earlier and I put some pants on that are a little bit too big for me, even though they're new. It's just, I don't know. Anyway, hopefully I don't get in your way. I'm going to walk you through this. And yes, this is on my girl's laptop, my girlfriend's laptop. I just hooked the big monitor up to it. As you can tell, I don't know if you can see that, her desktop is still unhooked. It's not plugged in, there's no power to it, nothing's hooked up to it. Everything's hooked up to her laptop, so. Alright, I'll get my coffee cup out of the way here. Alright, right here we have 2-inch PVC pipe going down into a T. And it reduces down to either a 1 or 3/4 inch. It's irrelevant, it doesn't matter. And that all goes into I would say about a 6-inch pipe if you're going to use PVC. You can use any type of container as long as you can make it waterproof or watertight. You can do this way. And the reason I did it this way is I made it so the wires could go up and heat from the motor could go up. Now both ends are capped off. I have an adapter here with a shaft coming out, and there's a rubber gasket here with the shaft and on this end too, and that way it makes it watertight. The motor's mounted on the inside, and it comes out, and I have I would say it depends on what you have here. For your shaft, you can actually use PVC. I would go no smaller than 1 inch. You can try 3/4, but I don't know how well it's going to hold up if you're using PVC. And then you make yourself some fan blades. This can be made out of PVC pipe as well. You just cut it at an angle and mount it up here, screw it on, and when the water hits the blades will spin, it'll turn the shaft, and it'll turn the motor. This is a DC motor. As long as this is watertight and these seals stay good, this is completely submersible. And it says here I have 4-inch pipe. I would actually go a little bit bigger than that, because I'm looking at the motor and it's probably almost 4 inches, so I'd go a little bit bigger. And yes, I have 2-inch going up. If you have some heavy duty 1-inch pipe, you could probably use that. And then 3/4 or 1-inch PVC fittings going up from your main pipe up with air. Now this is something I generally will not make. I eventually will try to make this, you know, when we get the money for parts. So we're looking at a couple pieces of PVC, some PVC fittings, some rubber washers, some type of metal shaft. I do have some steel pipe outside, little bitty pipe, but it's a little bit too big. I believe it would take like a 1/4 inch or something like that to fit the motor I have on the bike generator. And then I can actually just make the fan blades myself out of PVC. Once again, I apologize for the drawing. I am having to use Windows Paint for all of my stuff. I do not have a touch screen, and even if I did, I don't have the programs to actually draw with and things like that. So you have to forgive the drawings. Alright, this is a second one I made. I apologize. The motor is way up here. If you can see it, it is really tiny. It is not up to scale. I once again apologize. Here we have a main shaft. Now this is basically something that the guy was trying to do for the water, and I will show you something on that. Right here, this is the only thing I don't like about this design. This is belt driven, and if you know anything about belts, when they get wet they can slip. Right here would be your water wheel. Now this can be anything from a 20-inch bike wheel to a 10-speed wheel that you just mount PVC across. And when you do that, take your PVC pipe, cut it in half, or about half, and then screw it down. And this actually has a pulley system here and a pulley system here, and one here and one on the motor itself. Now what this would do is, I actually have this on a 2x4 frame to keep it stable. If you actually had this on wire or something like that, or maybe a frame up here holding it into the water so your motor would stay on the water, it'd be much better than just, you know, this is just a rough draft to what I can do with this. You can actually make this as long as you want. This can actually go in the water. This could sit on the ground right here, and this could be a 20 to 30 foot pipe going clear back here to this end and then up to your motor. And yes, I do understand if I set this on the ground, I would have to dig out part of the ground right here for the belt. And I would actually have something built over something like this, especially on this end where the motor is. But as long as this is moving, this pulley here is turning, belt up to this pulley here. Now these pulleys need to be a pretty decent size. If this pulley and this pulley are about the same, you'll get about the same speed out of the end going to this motor. What I would do is I would try to get a decent sized pulley on this side and try to find the biggest pulley I could find for this side that would go up, and a very small pulley on the motor. Alright, this can be done with water. Now that's what I'm talking about, strictly water. So the one thing you have to understand about water, know your water. And some people might not understand that. Let me put it this way. If you live next to a lake and you can throw a leaf in that lake and you watch that leaf sit in the same place for 10 minutes and it barely drifts off, nothing is going to work for you. Absolutely nothing. As far as water is concerned. Now, if you need to get water out of that lake, there are other ways to do that, such as a solar panel and some type of 12-volt pump like the one I have, or the little bitty pump. If you haven't seen the video on that, I have a little hand pump. It's, you know, push button. It's USB rechargeable. Yes, you can get water out of a lake with something like that. If your river or your lake does not have any force to it, then nothing water is going to help you at all. You will not be able to produce power. You will not be able to use anything I make or anything anyone else makes to get water out of that river unless you have an external power source and some type of pump. Alright, let's go to the next one. And I understand some of these drawings are a little confusing because in my head they make sense. This is what I'm talking about. I hope you can see this. One of the videos I watched, a guy had a piece of PVC pipe and he put a bunch of extenders, basically adapters to make them larger, okay? So he went from like a 2-inch pipe to like a 6-inch pipe or something like that on this end. Where he screwed up is he had his PVC and he actually capped it off on the end. He put a hole in it and he went and bought a $25 adapter that turns on both sides. Basically, it just free spins. So, when he hooked that up, all it did was his fan blades out here would just spin and turn. Nothing else. If you're going to make a water pump like this, there is one thing I did not put in here that I will tell you about, and yes, I understand it will rust, but, you know, if this is a DIY thing, okay? This you can make yourself. This is basically a 2-inch pipe. Is this adapter here needed to make it wider on the front? Absolutely not. Okay? You make your fan blades. You get a shaft that can go all the way through it. Pretty close to the end. I mean, you don't need it all the way through, but you need it pretty close to the end. And if you look up here, this is the outside pipe. And what I did was I made a piece out of wood, and this should be a circle in the center, but and unfortunately, again, I'm using Windows Paint. That will fill in 90% of this here. Well, about 80%, something like that. That holds the pipe straight. Now, you can always put something in here, right here, you know, to make sure the pipe doesn't slip. You can put something on the end. You can change this around. You can actually put a water hose connection at the top, and then the pipe can sit at the very back. This back has to be closed off. You don't want it open, you want it closed. And you make your own little fan blades. Now, what I would do in a situation like this is I would take a regular tin can, spaghetti, something like that, and I would put the can in here like this, and with a big hole in the center for the pipe to where it just barely fits. And once you get your can in here, first you drill holes in your can on the bottom. You only need the bottom on it. You don't need the top. You find a piece of rubber, and basically your can is like this. Your pipe's coming through the center. I hope you can see this. And on the back of your can, and especially if it's like rounded on the bottom, you drill holes in it, and you put a piece of rubber there, and you screw the rubbers down to the can, the rubber, big piece of rubber. That way the water can go in, but if it starts to backflush, then that piece of rubber will push up against that can and seal it, so it can't backflush. Now, as long as these fan blades on this diagram, as long as these fan blades are spinning, the water's spinning this, the water will come in. And the thing is, if you start getting air to where it's just pushing air out instead of water. Right at the top, just drill a couple small holes before you hit that can. Say the can is right here. Drill some small holes here, 2 or 3, and that way it comes in, and then the air will come up. It'll get out the top. But once it passes this can, you have your fan blades here that you made. They're just made out of tin cans or whatever, you know. You could actually make them out of pieces of PVC pipe, whatever you want to make them out of, that are spinning the same direction this is spinning. And so this is pushing and turning. The water's turning this, turning the shaft, turning these fan blades you made. That is actually pushing the water out and up through your hose. And yes, I got a little fin here, shark fin, whatever. I really don't believe you need a fin on this. But once again, if you need one, make one, and that'll keep it stable on the back. And then you could just tie a rope around this here, and like here, and tie it up somewhere. Now I understand this is a little bit confusing. This is all DIY, made with tin cans, pieces of wood, and pieces of metal and stuff like that. PVC pipe, you know, basically DIY stuff. Now we're fixing to get into water wheels. Yes, I know it looks bad. I apologize. This is your average 55 or 30 gallon drum, give or take. You know, whatever size you can get your hands on. I know they're expensive. I'm going to show you a cheaper way in a little bit. To get your water wheel, you really don't want to use this whole thing. I mean, unless you have that much room in your river. Now you can actually cut this, cut 2 ends, and you can actually either JB weld these ends together, put big nuts and bolts through it to hold it together, you know, with silicone. But this has to be airtight. You want that airtight. That way, when you drop this in the water, it will float more or less. It'll sink a little bit, but it has enough air, it'll float. Then you put, and I apologize, I understand the PVC pipe is not great unless you're using electrical pipe, which, you know, that's fine. You can use whatever you have. You cut down your pieces of PVC, you screw them on the outside with silicone underneath, and then guess what? Right there, that'll turn. Now all this is here is, if you look at the top of an electrical outlet box, well, junction box, electrical box, not junction, but the electrical box itself in your house, or even outside, 99% of the time there's a pole or pipe coming in there. Right where that pipe comes in, there's a metal flange that the pipe screws into, and that screws down on the metal electrical box, your main box. That's all this is. And then a piece of pipe. Then you can hook up however you want to whatever you want to. Alright, this is just me making the water wheels. This is a double wheel. Now suppose you wanted to take one of these and you wanted to, you really couldn't get this to seal. That's where this comes in. Now I apologize once again, the dimensions are off, extremely off. A 55 gallon container, a 55 gallon jug is pretty big. So say you cut that in half and you can't figure out how to get that thing together and you're going to give up. Don't give up. This is going to cost you a little bit. This is probably one of the most expensive ways right here. Unless you hook up a DC motor and batteries and all that other stuff. This is half, not even half. This is part of an end. This is part of an end. I hope you can see this brown here would be plywood. 3/4 inch marine grade plywood, painted, stained, whatever you have to do with it to get it waterproof. Now you cut that plywood so it'll fit inside these extremely snugly, just really snug, and you put some type of silicone sealant on it, and you make that waterproof. Now you can drill holes through all this before you put all this together permanently. This is one main pipe going through both. Now this in the center is just a 20-inch or 10-speed bike rim. You know, I understand it doesn't look right. Once again, I am using Windows Paint, so you know, sorry about that. And I did not put the slats for, you know, the PVC pipe to make the wheel turn. You will have to do that. But this way, you actually have two that'll float. I actually have it just on a 2x4 brace. Once again, you can actually just use a bar all the way through all this if you wanted to. And then on the metal pipe, I wouldn't say a bar, I'd say a metal pipe. Something you can drill into pretty easily. And then you can put, instead of using the pieces off of a breaker box, just go all the way through the pipe, you know, with the pipe, excuse me, and buy some small hinges that will screw on two sides here and then two sides here, and then you can screw that onto your DIY water wheel. This is the double wheel. That's what I call it. I know. Alright, I believe we're fixing to get into the cheapest thing possible. This is strictly DIY. This is for people that don't have a lot of money but need to be able to have some type of water wheel. This is for slower moving streams, or you know, things like that, where you can't have a super large water wheel. I actually made a double. I will show you what I'm talking about. To make one of these, it would probably cost you, if you had a junkyard or a place you could find bike parts, with the new stuff you would have to buy, it would probably cost you from the store, I don't know, 10, 12 bucks. If you had the bike sprocket. This is a 2 5-gallon bucket. That's right, 5-gallon buckets. Water wheel. And yes, you do not have to use two, you could use one. And this is really simple to make. Alright. Right here in the center is your bike sprocket. You have two pieces of wood, one on each side. The way I would make the wood here, I would make them rectangle, and I would put one this way and one up this way. That way your wood holds your sprocket in place. You have your two 5-gallon buckets here, and you have one single pipe going all the way through it. Just one, that's all you need. Now, right here, once you get all this put together, you have your wood here, your wood here. Your sprocket has holes in it drilled into the wood on both sides. That's why I said if you make it, your wood pieces like this and like this, basically make a plus sign. One will go on one side, one will go on the other side of your sprocket. Then from the inside, you can screw down the buckets onto the wood. And for this to work, you need to have a hole in the top, a hole in the bottom on both of them, and that will just, right there, one single pipe. Your bike sprocket here, the reason I use a bike sprocket on this and pieces of wood, one, you can use rubber if you need to, or something else. I prefer wood because I can actually screw the buckets to the wood, or even bolt them all the way through and through the sprocket if I have to. Most people have wood laying around. And using the bike sprocket, you don't have to worry about things like a belt slipping. And right here, these are, I hate to say it, once again, the blue things here are pieces of PVC pipe. If you're going to make this for a slower running river or creek, you can actually only do one and have the sprocket here, and then just build you some kind of frame around the one to hold it down in the water so it stays straight. But these are PVC pipe, and the reason I made two on here is if you look at how the pipe is, I have a piece of pipe on top here, and then it zags down here and then zigzags. And the reason I'm doing that is because you're using PVC pipe, there's going to be a little gap at the top where the pipe is that will capture water. So you actually want this constantly spinning. So these pieces have to be at different positions. So if this piece is in the water and this is moving right here, then by the time it gets out of the water, this piece is hit. That's why I'm zigzagging. The least amount of resistance is what you're after. And like I said, if you wanted to make something like this with a sprocket, you don't have to make two of these, and you don't have to go all the way up to the lid. And you do have to make this airtight. Like I said, the lid you don't have to worry about, but right here where the pipe goes through needs to be airtight. And I'm saying this for a reason. This is going to float. It's going to more or less stay on the surface of the water. You do not want something that's going to sink 2 feet underwater, because it's not going to work. This will actually float. It'll actually turn. And like I said, if you have your pipe going all the way through, make sure you make it airtight. This is the cheapest DIY right here as far as a water wheel that you can actually use for actually something. Once again, you can have your sprocket here, have some type of frame, have a sprocket up here, or your DC motor way up here so it never gets touched by the water. And that way this is constantly spinning or turning that sprocket, and it's turning your motor. Or you could use some type of pump or something like that. But once again, this is probably the cheapest way to build a DIY water wheel. Anyway, I hope you understood. If you don't, leave something in the comments. Say, I have no clue what you're talking about. Can you explain it better? And I will try my best. But yeah, I'm tired of seeing stuff on YouTube where people are so blatantly telling you to do something that's wrong, or they're spending a lot of money on something that they're not going to really use, or your average person can't build. You know, something like this anybody can build. That has a drill, a couple of drill bits, a piece of metal pipe, some wood, and an old bike, and you know, some PVC pieces. Something like this anyone can build. Anyway, that's it. Oh, no, I'm not gonna send that through a circle bit. Like I said, I am on my girlfriend's computer. Well, not her computer, actually her laptop. Because I wanted to make sure that you can actually see it. In fact, let's see. There you go. See, told you. Anyway, that's it. And I hope this helps somebody out. I hope you can hear me okay, because the camera's pretty far away. If you really want to know about something, but you couldn't hear me, just ask in the comments, and I'll try to explain it a little bit simpler for you. Anyway, that's it. Everyone have a good day.